Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Nextdoor NetAdmin. It's a little bit of a different setting today because we are actually in my official office. As opposed to any of the other places where I do work, whether that's my home office or client sites or whatever. I actually do have an official office. It's just rare that I would have people in here. So, here we are. I'd love to start off with this wonderful little piece up here, which, I think says a lot about the job of a system admin. We're here to try and make the complicated stuff simple. That's what we do. Let me flip the camera around and I'll show you around a little bit more. Starting with our wonderful little motivational saying here. What have we gotten here? Well, first of all, this is an office that I share, so not all of this is mine. These, however, are new switches destined for a client site. They're not entirely working the way that I want them to yet, but they're going out soon, so I'm going to need to fix that up. We've got some older access points, switches here. We've got some old backup appliances, an old router, a brand new switch that I need to configure and get out to a client site today, as a matter of fact. I've got a... Focus, please. Thank you. I've got a secondary working area here for whether I have servers or right now I have a vault here. It's just a separate monitor and keyboard and various cables that I need to hook things up when and where necessary. Otherwise, my workstation, dual monitor setup, nothing terribly fancy here. That's largely everything, but from here, I can do a fair amount of work. So why are we here? Why are we here in my office right now? Well, partly because I thought it would be fun to give you a look at the working environment of a network administrator. We don't all work in those huge data centers with racks and racks and racks of equipment. I would love to work in there. I suspect I'd have a lot more respiratory ailments if I did, just because sitting under a massive building air conditioner like that kind of dries out the sinuses, or at least this is what I have found. So that would be a thing. But no, a lot of us just work in basic, regular offices, not too different from a normal office worker, I suppose. Help desk, which is further out that away, has a much more open environment. As one of the more senior admins, I got stuck in a back office. I say stuck. I accepted a back office, in fairness. It was offered and I accepted. Like I said, it's a shared environment, but it at least gives us a space where we can do some more involved work. One of the things that I will show you, really briefly if I swivel around, is something that is actually fairly important to me. This, which way does the camera go? Is a copy of the System Administrator's Code of Ethics. It's something that I plan on talking about more extensively, probably in one of the free forms at the end of the month. But it's important to me to, have that up there as a reminder to myself about the System Administrator's Code of Ethics, but also kind of as a public statement. Not so much virtue signaling. I'm not terribly into virtue signaling, but as a public statement of, this is what I believe, this is what I consider the standard to which I hold myself, and this is the standard that I want other people to hold me to as well. So you could look at it as virtue signaling, but it's actually something different, I would say. Other projects that I have going, I mentioned the switches over there that I need to do. I mentioned a new switch behind me that I need to configure. I showed a vault which is currently being configured as an auditing box, something that we can take from site to site and just plonk down and use it to audit a network for any customer or potential customer who's asked us to do a network audit. So that's something that's on the go. Other projects that I've got on the go, what is the kind of thing that is on the docket for a system administrator? Well, I have a server actually here in-house that needs to be decommissioned and removed from the infrastructure. I have a co-location facility that needs to be cleaned out. I've got more of the vaults to build for other customers, or at least I need to finish getting them deployed on site because some of them have been and some of them haven't been, so that needs to happen. I'm currently working on deploying a new tool, new to us at least, called Auvic. I might show that to you guys at some point, I don't know. But we've got several client sites that needs to be deployed at, and that involves building a virtual machine so that we have a separate environment for these tools to run. That requires configuring SNMP across all the network devices. When it's a Windows environment, that requires group policies to configure WMI. It requires configuring logins specifically for anything with a terminal environment, Cisco switches, access points, etc. It requires configuring syslog, deploying a collector, and then sorting through everything it finds and going yes, no, scan this network, don't scan these other networks because they're the voice network and I don't really want you dragging on all the phones with, scans every 15 seconds. Things like that. It's a lot to go through, so that definitely gets put on my docket. I've got a NAS migration project that has been going on for months, but we're in the home stretch. We're down to like the last 12 users or so to migrate. Hopefully that'll be scheduled sometime this week. If not, maybe next week. I have Windows 11 install images to finish building for another client. That's another thing that I thought I would take you guys through, but it takes a little bit of time to go through that. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to work that. Another NAS and server that were recently approved by a client, so those need to get built, although we don't have the hardware yet, so I can't really do any building on it until we get the hardware, for obvious reasons. Another client has a project with some server and switch upgrades. I have a meeting set up with the owners of that particular business for next week, because when you're talking large sums of money in the multiple thousands of dollars, particularly because they happen to have some very heavy applications that require a lot of system resources for all of their workers. So when you're like, okay, so you need to replace 30 computers at a workstation cost because you need graphics cards for, ray tracing and all the et ceteras that you need for doing all your design work. Well, you need 35 machines at a rough cost of $5,000 to $7,000 a piece. That's a lot of money. So when you're trying to tell a client, this is what you actually need, this is what your systems require in order for you to do the work that you say you need to do, sometimes you just got to have a meeting to acquaint people with the numbers and let them get a little more comfortable with it, so that they know that as an admin, you've done your research, you've done your work in making sure that they have what they need, and this is something that actually has reasoning behind it, shall we say. After that, there's another client that needs new equipment We don't know what new equipment they need yet. We just know that they need new equipment. Their equipment is, I want to say 8 years old now, possibly older. It needs a replacement, but part of pitching a replacement is actually doing the assessment and going, okay, what does the client actually need? I'm not going to give them something that's boilerplate off the shelf, because either they're going to overpay, and that's not good, or they're going to get something that doesn't do what they need it to do, and clearly that's not good either. So assessing their needs and getting something that is good for them is a very important step in the process. And then we can go in with confidence and say, we've actually done the assessment. Here's what we think you need. Is there anything you want to change about this? And then they have the opportunity to change that, or to say, we've got budgetary concerns and we see what we can do about it. But that all has to start with me actually doing the assessment work. So that's a thing. What else? Let's see. I'm actually scrolling live through my list of projects so that I can give you a glimpse into what a network admin might have on their plates. We've got new switches at another client site that are currently waiting on wiring to be completed. We have the hardware. They put some wiring in place. Some of it wasn't to spec. Some of it is a matter actually of the mounts for the switching hardware were put in such a way that the switches don't fit. So you have to go back and say, okay, you mounted this incorrectly. We need this to be changed, or else we can't install the new equipment. And they're like, okay, well, we'll get to it in 2 weeks, a month. Okay. Our equipment is there. We're not the ones holding up this project, but we can't move forward on it either, yet. We will eventually, just not yet. Permissioning work that needs to be done. Some additional router upgrades and etc. A couple of big projects for big software upgrades. One of these pieces of software has, I kid you not, a 170-page installation manual plus. That's the installation manual. It's a big piece of software, complicated. It's going to take a lot of time for me to actually sit down, go through it all, and digest it so that I know what I'm doing and can perform the system upgrade without things breaking. I like to do upgrades without things breaking. So I don't know when I'm going to get time for that, but it's got to go on the list because it's got to be done at some point. But yeah, that is a brief rundown of just the projects that I have. We're not even talking about the day-to-day stuff that comes up when people go, I need assistance with this, or there's training that I need to deliver for some other thing. These are just the projects. And this is somewhat reduced. I've been working fairly continuously for a few months, but particularly the last 2 or 3 weeks, to try and knock some of this stuff out. So this is what's left at this point. But yeah, I know it's a short video today, but there you go. A glimpse at the office of a network admin, and a little glance into what kinds of work a network admin has to deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, ongoing basis. There you go. So yeah, hopefully that was enlightening and a cool little glimpse into my world. And otherwise, we will see you next week. I am your next door net admin, and we'll see you next time.